Don't let the wrinkles fool you. He has a backhand the size of a frying pan. He could knock Bobby's block smooth off. Bobby's head will be rotating around the rings of Saturn if he keep talking sideways to Jock. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to Soap Lore, the official gathering place for newbies, novices, and OG diehard fans of the golden age of prime time. I'm your host, Jeb, viewing and reviewing the soapiest, sudziest primetime storyline of 1981. We are back down south, down home. We are in Dallas, season 4, episode 10. So whether you're new to this or true to this, sit back and enjoy. Tell the kids it's time to play outside or out of sight. Tell babe no questions, suggestions, or concerns for the next 25 to 35 minutes. Everyone else in earshot, cool, quiet, or kicked out are the only options. And we're not playing today, baby, because we are watching our stories. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is Soap Lore. Hello, gorgeous! Welcome back to another fun-filled edition of Soap Lore. I know you've been fiending for this just like I have. It's been a minute. Life has been lifing. I hope your evening is shaping up well, morning, noon, or night, whenever you're listening to this. I hope you're having a good day. I decided to treat myself to a little bit of aromatherapy. I picked up some live lavender, put it in my bedroom, turned on the air, came back, and the room was just aromatic and refreshing. And I immediately felt better until I started to realize this is a little strong. It was giving off vintage potpourri vibes. You remember those cans? Like the super loud aerosol cans that basically shot a water hose out of the can and made everything wet and smell like hot cinnamon and a little bit of puke. Yeah, kind of like that. But I figured out the formula, got it together. I hope you are doing well. We are back in Dallas. Now, with all the hoopla going on with the other shows, it isn't that I had forgotten about Dallas, but I knew they were ready for their slower pace. Dallas slows down a little harder, in my opinion, than the other shows, and this episode was no exception. Season 4, episode 10, Executive Wife. Full confession. I watched this one through, and by the time it was done, I thought, oh God, that was really quick. That wasn't really about anything. So I gave it a day, came back, watched it again, had the same thought, there's not really a lot going on here, so I went ahead and watched episode 12. But then it finally hit me. I was sitting in my car, remembering a time when I had showed up to work, and this guy, I worked in like a corporate office, so this guy was going around, and he had like this pencil and pad. He was a coworker, and he started asking for signatures. Hey, I need this for, we just want to, get a number to pass up to the higher ups about, I can't even remember what it was. Let's say it was a vending machine or something. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. So I signed my name. I was very young at the time, very naive. About 3 hours later, there's sort of this announcement that there needs to be this sort of mass meeting. I look out the window. We were on the 5th floor at the time, and I see the same gentleman who was writing on this little tablet. He is now walking to the parking lot. He looks a little bit peeved, but really didn't put 2 and 2 together. Turns out he was staging a coup. What he presented as an opportunity to get a vending machine or something really inconsequential. I wish I could remember what it was. He presented that to higher up as the number of people who would like this person out of his position. He tried to stage a coup and he brought everyone in on it. Now immediately I was low-key appalled. Like, don't bring me into this mess. I thought we're talking about Funyuns. You're talking about firing people. Needless to say, that did not work out. But today's episode immediately reminded me of that situation once I had a little bit of time to think about it. So we're going to jump into Executive Wife. Grab yourself something soothing, kick back, and let's meditate on Spectrum of Power. Do you guys remember that show, American Gladiators? I'm sure you did. And if you're a 90s kid, on Nickelodeon, they had a kids version called Guts. It wasn't exactly the same, but the premise was you did all these tasks kind of to prove your agility. The kids one, they did like puzzles and video games and stuff. And then you would go up against this mountain, and it was a whole thing. I loved it. Me and my little brother thought it was everything. But on American Gladiator, the contenders were always people who stood out a little bit. They were either really strong in their personal life. Maybe they were bodybuilders, track athletes, something to that effect, but they would go up against the Gladiators. And you would find yourself kind of cheering for both. And if memory serves me correctly, it was always the people who weren't just overtly strong. It wasn't the Hulk out there winning every single challenge. It was always someone a little bit sneaky, a little bit stealthy, a little bit quiet, agility, and someone who had the ability to kind of think a problem all the way through. The way you'd beat a gladiator wasn't going to be through brute force. It was going to be a little bit of psychology plus agility plus a little bit of physical stamina or whatever. You know what I'm saying? This episode is heavy on the psychology and the real power that comes from not necessarily being in a position of power, but knowing other people's weakness. Sometimes that's all it takes. And this episode is no different. Per usual, we're going to start off with the bit players who are getting bigger and bigger parts. Like I said, I snuck and watched episode 12. I generally try not to do that, but this one just felt so slow until I took a step back. The long and short of it is Bobby is working things out for the greater good of the company, and he's doing it with his head held high. He's not screwing anyone over. He's thinking on his feet. He's coming up with new scenarios. He's getting money. He's doing all the things. Now Jock is off to the side doing his thing, and JR is sitting in the middle looking for an opportunity to strike. But before we get to them, we got to talk about Lucy Lou. So Mitch is still coming around the house. You know, they break up to make up, or he pouts a lot. This doesn't spoil anything, but I'm clocking Mitch as Mitch is addicted to the struggle. You know the person. Do you know someone who brags about waking up at 4 a.m. and their routine, and they've always got an alarm going off or something or another? It's commendable. We understand that you're focused and you're disciplined, but at some point, like, you be making things harder for yourself because you can, not because it's absolutely necessary. Mitch is kind of giving off that vibe to me. So he and Lucy are back to being loverbirds. And he comes over for dinner. She pulls him in the study and she's like, "Hey, you love me, right?" "Yeah." "You love me more than anyone else you've ever loved?" "Yes, Lucy, I do." "Cool. Let's get married next month." And he's like, "What? I need to graduate high school. I need to graduate." She's like, "I need to graduate too. We can just study together. Let's go ahead and get married. Let's go tell my mom and them, or my grandparents and them." So they go in the other room and Lucy's like, "Hey, everyone." Lucy, not Mitch, mind you. "Hey, everyone, we're getting married in a month." The Ewings have no chill. Ellie goes, "Oh no, Lucy." And I'm like, "Dang, you can even pretend?" But I get that. That's her granddaughter. She thinks it's a huge mistake. Color her hypocritical, though, because did she or did she not throw a whole secret wedding and buy a West Coast house for her deadbeat middle son? Did she or did she not? Thank you. That's what I thought. Jock's like, "Now wait a minute. Now everybody's got something to say." Now Sue Ellen, fresh off of being kicked out. Sue Ellen, it stays on kicked out terms more than anybody else on this show. We'll get to her in a minute. But she's like, "Lucy, is there a reason?" Implying like, "Girl, are you pregnant?" Because that would be on par. Lucy's like, "No, I'm not pregnant. I'm just like, dang, we want to be in love. We're married and all that." JR comes in with the slickerydickory.com and he's like, "Well, you know, marriage ain't a bowl of roses or whatever. Mitch, you're not going to have your practice for a while. How are you going to take care of Lucy?" He goes, "Well, I'm not going to go into practice. I'm going to go into research." This is where, now I thought that was weird that he said that, because I was like, don't we already know that? We know that from Knots Landing, because JR is going to go and talk to them about it. He just can't believe this kid is going to do research instead of having a private practice. But Mitch seems quite satisfied, and he's like, "Lucy will have to become accustomed to what I can provide for her, not what you can," in so many words. JR's like, "I don't know. Marriage can be pretty hard, can't it, Pam?" Again, pot calling the kettle black. But what I love about JR is that he is blissfully not self-aware. And you know what? It's part of his power. It works in his favor every single time. Pam doesn't take the bait. Matter of fact, she's like, "Let me go ahead and solidify my place one more time as a favorite auntie." She goes, "I want to be the first one to kiss the bride." She goes over, she kisses Lucy. "You're going to be a beautiful bride. I'm so happy for you, Mitch. Welcome to the family, baby." I'm like, that's how you do it, Pam. That's how you shut everybody up with the quickness, because everybody in that room, with the exception of JR and Sue Ellen, got married in a hurry where someone else didn't want them to be together, and it happened anyway. So I understand you can't be the pot calling the kettle black, but when you have a loved one, I get it. They don't want her to jump in and think too rash. It is my opinion, though, that the Ewings are well aware that the North Texas Lolita has only not been the Lolita for about 10-15 minutes. They are fully ready for her to go back out there and sow her wild oats. I kind of think Ellie's like, I think she thinks Mitch is too good for her. Just saying. Just saying. They do talk about it briefly a little later. Lucy is throwing around her bundleless hair all the way to her waist. Lucy is looking so fly this season. Somebody took their time and got her wardrobe absolutely perfect. She looks like a superstar every time she's on screen. They're giving her a little bit more range, but it's like she's still that love-sick little girl. And I have to remember, she's only 18, 19 in this. She's going to be that obnoxious, kind of overly flirty, spoiled little rich girl trying to make good. But Ellie eventually sort of comes around to the idea of she and Mitch getting married, but it is the topic of the town for now. So it's looking like Lucy's going to get married. She will most likely move out and move in with Mitch in his teeny tiny apartment, much to the chagrin of the Ewing clan. Speaking of moving out, Sue Ellen has settled in quite nicely back from her latest expulsion. And she is more determined than ever to be JR's wife. She's not Sue Ellen, she is JR's wife. And if you've ever watched The Real Housewives of anything, you'll notice they have a cast and then they have a friend of. Sue Ellen's starting to feel like a friend of a cast member. She's still JR's little stool pigeon. Unbeknownst to her, he is back to banging his secretary. That is his pleasure, his pride, and his joy. Doesn't matter if the secretary is his sister or some girl who's freshly married. That's where he gets his kicks. And in this episode, we get to see his secretary. It's kind of a little bit of a power play between JR's secretary and Bobby's secretary, who both has a crush on Bob. But Sue Ellen, I guess this episode, she wanted to remind us that she was Miss Texas 1968. She comes strolling downstairs in a black swimsuit. Again, I don't know whose niece was in the wardrobe department. I don't know if it was like the director's daughter, but there is a surplus of swimming pool attire throughout this season. We're 10 episodes in. Ain't nobody put on the same bathing suit twice, and they're in a bathing suit every single episode. So perhaps this is the season 4. I'm sexy and I know it. Let me remind the audience that underneath this drama and boozy exterior is the body of Miss Texas 1968. For whatever reason, this episode, she finds it okay to kind of poke at Bobby. Bobby being the Boy Scout, doing the right thing. He's making the right money moves. Sue Ellen is smirking at him. Basically called him JR's little brother. Said, you know what, Bob? You don't really know how to have power. You're not going to get very far in anything because you're just not JR. You are JR's little brother. You know, Sue Ellen is my girl. She is my girl, but I'm really disappointed in her this episode. I'm like, really, Sue Ellen? Weren't you the same one who did she call when she went to jail? Who was the one who arranged a meeting so that she could see the baby? Who was the one she was kissed in the bedroom right before she went to the drunk asylum? Bobby. Bobby's been her boy. Bobby's been her best friend. But now that she's back to being the married side chick of a man who could not care less, now Bobby's, baby, you ain't gonna never have no power. You're just Bobby. You're just JR's little brother. It's worth noting, though, she may not be wrong. There are different versions of power. Sometimes power is strength. Sometimes it is mental fortitude. Sometimes it is turning the other cheek when you'd rather snap someone over your leg like a twig. Bobby is doing his best. This should be the why does everybody hate Bobby episode. And it's coming in from all sides. Let's talk about Jock, though. I feel like we got to talk about Jock first and we'll smash everybody together. Jock is kind of in his... He's retired, but he's not ready to just be stagnant, if that makes any sense. He still wants his hand in something. You got to think about his entire life. He's been a wildcatter. He's been a rancher. It's too soon for him to give up that part of himself. And you know what? His old homeboys are calling him. They want to go to Fort Worth every other day to discuss business. Got this prime piece of real estate on the Texas-Louisiana border. We're going to turn that into condos. We're going to turn it into a resort. Won't you come in on this, Jock? And this feels good. He likes the wheeling and dealing. Bobby's running Ewing Oil. JR is sort of running it, but it's like he doesn't really have a place. So this feels good. It feels good to be back in the saddle. It feels good to be the first person getting the information instead of having it regurgitated to you from one of your kids. Unbeknownst to Jock, JR, like I said, has been waiting in the wings. He's looking for an opportunity to strike while the iron is hot. Let me go ahead and turn two people who love each other a lot. Let me turn them against one another. So Bobby and Jock are both vaguely aware of each other's business. Bobby kind of knows that his dad is working on something at the border. Jock kind of knows that Bobby is working on something for the border. Doesn't appear to be in the same spot so far, but it might be. I don't see why else would they would keep talking about it. So Jock's friend, one of them was Punky, and I forget the other one's name, but Punk Anderson and Guy who shall remain unnamed because he does not have the drip that Jock and Punk Anderson have. They need him to come in with $10 million. Ewing Oil has something like 14 million in the bank just sitting there. Bobby is in the office having a meeting with this guy who is, do you remember the episode where everything exploded? Like the whole deal was that he didn't want to screw over the little guy. He kind of did. All that worked out a little bit. He's like extra cautious. He wants to make sure he doesn't do anything to snuff out these smaller business owners. But this guy in his office is trying to pay him $2 more a barrel than anyone else will. It's like $18 million easy money because they have a refinery. Basically, he wants the crude. And Bobby's like, no, I'm really, really sorry. I just can't do that. I have a gentleman's agreement with these smaller corporations. So I'm sorry. I'm going to pass. The cartel wants him to jump in bed with them so that they can buy this prime real estate on the Texas-Louisiana border, drill there. It's looking just gushy good. They're like, dude, this is a sure thing. $50K up front. Then we'll need the $12 million on delivery. So let's do a little math. There is approximately $13 million-ish in Ewing bank account liquid asset. Yes, they have 10 times as much as Jock says a little later on in the show. They have 10 times as much as that in assets, but this is all that's available. And that cash will need to be paid out really quickly. So it becomes this sort of silent race as to who's going to get the money first. Now, Bobby is not fully aware of the cost of Jock's deal. Jock's not really aware of the cost of Bobby's deal. But JR is. His do dirt secretary is doing all the intel, telling him when meetings are. He's listening to this and that conversation. He's talked to Bobby, so he knows exactly what's about to go down. And in order to secure his success, his place on the throne, he decides to accompany Jock to the Cattlemen's Club when he has the dinner or supper or lunch, whatever, with Punk Anderson, Guy who remains unnamed, and Ray. Jock is folding Ray in. Ray, you need to be about this. Remember, Ray is apparently the dirt whisperer. He can he can like lay hands on the dirt and it'll tell him if it's going to grow stuff and if it's oil. Yeah, allegedly. That's his whole thing. So, and Punk Anderson is like, yeah, man, this, that, and the third. The geology reports look really good. It's going to be so good, Jock. Are you in? Are you in? Excuse me, no, not geology reports. We're going to build this. Is there so much prime real estate? People are going to want to buy it, blah, blah, blah. JR is like, man, that's a hell of a deal. Let's go ahead and jump on that. We don't wait around, do we? He's playing the psychological game. Now, Jock, feeling himself again, feeling young and footloose and fancy free, is like, you know what? Yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So he takes out $10 million, rendering the count insufficient in funds for Bobby's deal, but unbeknownst to Bob. Now, how does Bobby find out? You think his brother calls him and gives him the head up? Do you think Ray does? No, Ray's not really aware of all this. He finds out when his banker comes, after he has already agreed to jump in bed with the cartel, Bobby that is. His banker's like, hey, I'm so sorry, that money's not there. Jock took that money out this morning. That's all Bobby needs to hear. He's like, I know exactly who did this. He puts on his shoes. He heads down to the Cattlemen's Club so he can show out. He plans to just show out on a Jeff level. You remember when Jeff cussed everybody else? Jeff on Dynasty cussed everybody out, and Crystal was sitting there nervous because she still had on those scammer jewels that Blake was playing. Anyway, he's pissed, and he heads on down to the Cattlemen's Club for one of the best scenes of this series. This scene was passion-packed, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that the geriatric GQ Club put that ish on. They looked fantastic. Here comes that whole tug of war of power. Now, power means, yes, you have the ability to speak over these resources and decide where they're allocated. And Bobby should have that power because he is the president of Ewing Oil. So when he comes bursting into the restaurant, cussing out Jock and whatever, he's like, oh, that's real cute. Daddy, you just took all the money. How come you didn't tell me that you were going to take this money at the bank? This was an interesting scene because Jock is like, first and foremost, who are you talking to, boy? Take that bass out your voice. Don't let the wrinkles fool you. He has a backhand the size of a frying pan. He could knock Bobby's block smooth off. Bobby's head will be rotating around the rings of Saturn if he keep talking sideways to Jock. So Jock is like, who are you talking to and what are you talking about? Bobby's like, you know what I'm talking about, the $10 million you took out and didn't tell me. I'm the president of this here company. You're supposed to tell me. You got to run that by me. Jock's like, oh, that's real cute because I thought, I think Ewing Oil is me. Big Jock. I'm the one who started this, little boy. Kiss the ring, bow down. I take my money out whenever I damn well please. Bobby's like, no. You can't do that. You can't do that. Don't act like I'm looking into your pocket. This is for the business. So he's like, Jock's like, what are you going on about? By this point, Bobby's looking at JR, who is keeping a cucumber-ish face. Cucumber and lime face. He's trying not to smile. But he's like, JR, you knew all about this. Daddy, I need $12 million in order to get back into the cartel, but you took the money out this morning. So Jock's like, and we have 10 times that amount of money. Why do you care? He's like, we don't have it in liquid assets, and now it's too late. Now I can get back in the cartel because you didn't want to spend all the money. And here's where it gets interesting. Bobby then is like, I'm supposed to be the president. I have the power. You gave me the power to make those decisions. Jock is in his face before you know it. I don't know how old Jock is, but he jumps up. He gets 2 inches from his face and he goes, boy, that's your biggest mistake right there. Nobody, and I mean nobody, gives you power. You take it. Now this is hitting Bobby in his soft white underbelly because he's heard this before. This is pretty much what Sue Ellen told him just hours before. You don't ask for power, you take it. And until you understand this is a game, you have to love the game and you have to know how to play it. You, my dear, don't. You're not made for this. You're new to this, not true to this, and you'll never be. So JR has successfully pitted his brother and his father against each other. Now, taking a step back, let's think about this logically. This is technically a win-win for Ewing Oil. Yes, it's called Ewing Oil, but there's no reason why they can't expand their empire, right? They were building houses at some point. I thought Bobby was a foreman for a little bit. That didn't really pan out. But whether they pump more oil or whether this whole all-inclusive resort is a success, it's money in the bank for Ewing Oil. So it looks good. JR is very smart in the way he played them against each other. But what he did is even more important because now there's an even bigger rift. There was already a rift before. Remember, Bobby left at the end of season 3. Him and Pam were going to run away. They were going to go visit Gary and Valine on the West Coast and then live their lives, but they came back to run oil. So I understand why Bobby is super pissed because it's like, dude, I'm jumping over hoops. I am breaking my back. I'm doing just as good as business as JR ever did, but I'm doing it without screwing anyone. Oh, can't win for losing. And what he don't know is he losing something even bigger than that. Big Pam has caught the eye of a very, very debonair young man. Enter the dashing Alex Ward. Much like this episode, Alex is a little bit of a slow burn. At the top of the show, we see Pam outside. She is behind a guy holding a camera, watching these models. She's like being the artistic director of this photo shoot for the store. It made me realize I still don't really remember what Pam's job is. I thought she was some sort of buyer. But then remember Philip from Falcon Crest came and he had made an appearance as Mr. Store. And her redheaded boss got sent down to Houston. But they've made up because she started sleeping with Philip, who was Mr. Store. I can't remember. I don't know. I guess she would have been the manager or something. But that lady's back and she still seems to be in authority. So I'm not really sure what Pam is doing. Whatever she's doing it well and she has a passion for it. So she's minding her business, kind of telling everybody, turn this way, show the belt more, take off these fur. They are in, I forgot that part. They're like in ankle-length fur coats in the middle of Dallas. They look so good. But Pam's assistant comes over and she's like, hey, someone wants to meet you. I think you have a fan. And Pam's like, who is that? That's Alex Ward. He owns some Dallas magazine. Let's call it Life in Dallas magazine. What we find out a little later is that his family also owns some publications in Houston, so it was kind of a natural thing for him to take over this, although he had other dreams. He wanted to do other things. But he's giving her the stare. He's not blinking, and he's a very handsome man. Like, the more you look at him, the more handsome he is. Only I was slightly distracted. As Pam's assistant comes over, Pam's assistant is either the same age as her or maybe a little bit younger, maybe a year older, give or take. And she's got the really fluffy late 70s, early 80s, almost punk rock hair. That's about to be punk rock in like 2 more years here. But it's blonde at the end, where it's clearly been colored, but her roots are like pepper color, like the grays. Young woman, right? This is something I've noticed. I'm not sure I've ever said anything on the podcast about it, but I've noticed that on Dynasty 2 with Crystal. Crystal is blonde, but it seems like, let's say Crystal has a shoulder length mandatory wife haircut. Her roots are gray and black, or salt and pepper is what it's called. She's got probably 4 inches of root, and then the bottom is blonde. Now, it blends fairly well. It's not like, it doesn't stand out quite a bit, but it made me wonder why that was the choice of a dye job back then. And Bobby's secretary, it looks like she has frosted highlights, but it kind of comes off as gray. It's very confusing to me. I noticed this episode too, Alex Ward, his hair is like that. Like, his hair just grew out and the bottom of it is that kind of lighter blonde. Like, it's done on purpose. If you are a stylist or something and you were live back in the day doing your thing, somebody let me know. I'm very, very curious about that. And Alex Ward is curious about Miss Pam Ewing. He offers to take her to lunch, and she's just kind of smiling politely because she is flattered. He is talking about her passion. He seems to be passionate about the magazine. Very nice man. Bobby comes pulling up because now he's running around frantic, and he's like, hey, I'm so sorry. I can't go to lunch with you. I have to put out these fires, which is fair. 2 things can be right at the same time. 2 things can be very true at the same time. So she doesn't realize that he is kind of breaking his neck to keep his head above water because he is being undermined every single step. And it's going to be, if he fails at this, he's either going to piss off those small business owners or his dad. Either way it goes, he's going to ruin his reputation if he fails. He's got to be above and beyond. He has to be absolute perfection. So it is taking a lot of his time and energy. I'm with you when you're right, Bobby. I understand this is rough for you. But on the other hand, Pam is coming fresh off the revelation that not only is her mother not deceased, she is alive, she is well, she is wealthy, she is beautiful, and she is not interested in having and holding a place in Pamela Ewing's life so long as her husband's alive. Now, I don't know if this will go on any further, but she's not pumped about it. She wants to keep it a good secret because she actually never divorced Digger Barnes. She just changed her name and married another dude. So Pam is already feeling jaded because, remember, as she was searching for her mom, Bobby wasn't fully supportive. Neither was Cliff. It was kind of, she's doing this all on her own. And it's just coupled with him not coming home, JR throwing these little digs at her. She's having to eat dinner with his family, Dolo. It's just starting to be a lot. So when Mr. Alex, the good-looking, wealthy man who's suddenly interested in her, comes along, she is finding it a little bit hard to resist. So after Bobby drives off saying, hey, I can't take you to lunch, Alex says, hey, I can take you to lunch. She's smart, though. She's like, okay, let me think about this. I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable. I'm going to take my redheaded homegirl with me. So they go to lunch, and it's almost as if the redheaded lady isn't there, but she's watching from the side like, I know a side chick when I see one. Takes one to know one. She knows that Alex's intentions are to sweep Miss Pam off of her feet. And it's slowly starting to work. As the episode progresses, Bobby misses this lunch date. He misses this dinner date. Finally, she's like, yeah, let's go to lunch. Let's go to dinner. By the end of the episode, Bobby has stayed a night at the condo, come back and made up with her, canceled another dinner date. They've gotten in arguments. It's been a lot. So when Pam opens the door to her office one day, and it is flooded just like Crystal's apartment on Dynasty episode 1, with all the flowers and all the land, she's flattered, but she's still resisting. But by the end of the episode, she's like, you know what? My husband canceled dinner dates, and yeah, I'm hungry, so I'll meet you for dinner. Alex, in the car, she's saying that to herself. One of the cards on one of the many bouquet of flowers said, meet me at El Serranto tonight. Now, I've never been to El Sorrento. I did drive a Kia Sorrento, and I'll tell you one thing. It is comfortable, it is efficient, and it is highly practical, sleek, just like this man here. He is sleek, slick, and saying all the right things. So she pulls up to Sorrento. She opens the door, and it is crickets. It is dead quiet. He has booked out the entire restaurant so that they can have 2 hours. Count them, 120 minutes of peace and quiet, candlelight, romantic music, so that he can get to know Pam one-on-one on this non-romantic, very much work-related date, right? It's a problem. They have a lovely dinner. He knows all about her. By the time dessert comes around, nobody feels like eating anymore. They want to dance, and not the bump and grind dance, not the discotheque dance. It is a slow, hold me close, let me rest my chin on your chest type sort of dance. Cheek to cheek, palm to palm, chest to chest. It is only a matter of time. The dynamite is building. The action is building. And before you know it, oh no, oh look, oh no, my head's turning. They kiss. I think, oh my. Now Pam has the strength to just kind of shake herself out. She goes, oh my God, and she tries to leave, and he chases after her. Of course, he grabs her arm, and she's like, please don't do this. I'm too vulnerable right now. I can't do this with you. I cannot do this with you. End scene. Now that to me was a power play. Now, Alex, kudos to you. Tip my hat for renting out the restaurant. He saw that she was waiting on Bobby. He saw Bobby drive off saying he can't take her to lunch, and he smelled blood in the water. He's like, okay, let me jump in. Now, I don't know if he's sleazy. So far, he's being very respectful, and I did see episode 12, which I think I'm going to go ahead and record now because I don't want to have to keep this in my brain, and I'm dying to see episode 13. It is so good. 12 was so good. But part of the power play was Pam tried her very best all episode to kind of set herself up for success. I don't want to be too alone with him. Let me make sure I'm in constant contact with Bobby. Let me just put safeguards in place because I already know I'm pissed, and he's not going to have to talk a lot to just change my mind, and then I don't want to hate myself. But there is power in patience. Alex, I know for a fact in the next episode, he keeps trying to produce her. There's power in persistence. Same thing with JR. There's power in just waiting and pushing the right buttons. Yeah, he could have easily undermined Bobby and called the oil fill guy who wants to give him $2 more a barrel and said, hey, yeah, I'm head of Ewing Oil. Let's go ahead and get those contracts on. He doesn't. He bit his tongue, bided his time, made sure to get Jock good and riled up, made sure to encourage him to go ahead and buy that money. Go ahead and take that money out of the bank. Go ahead and invest in this. And leaving Bobby high and dry. It is a masterclass in manipulation, and I wouldn't expect anything else at this point. All right, guys, join me next time as we explore episode whatever. We will get back to Dallas. This has been so much fun. Things are lathering up. We got some drama with Lucy and her new in-laws. We got some drama with JR. We got Sue Ellen starting to slowly shake off that stool pigeon title and turn back to the old me. Don't have me start rapping Eminem. Nowadays, everybody want to talk like they got something to say. I'm going to stop, y'all. I'm going to stop while I'm ahead. Join me next time for another fun-filled edition of Self-Lore. In the meantime, in between time, keep your business to yourself. Your brother who hates your guts will absolutely flip it in reverse, leaving you high, dry, and about ready to die. Keep your friends close and remote closest. Mind your business, stay hydrated, and keep all of your drama on TV.